We don't mind all the new sports analytics. What we hate is that my neighbor's 8-year-old brat has to explain it to us. Hi everyone, Will O'Toole for another edition of Park Ridge Sports History, welcoming you all. This week I'd like to do a second part episode of what we did last week, and we featured on the last episode Cy Young Award possibilities in the National League. This week I'd like to take three guys and just focus on their hopes for gaining the Cy Young Award in the American League for 2023. And those are, and I'm going to use local products, Jarrett Cole, former Met, Chris Bassett, and of course, Batista, the flame-throwing Baltimore Oriole right-hander who unfortunately went down with Tommy John, or actually needs Tommy John surgery. Felix Batista needs Tommy John surgery, and hopefully will be back next year. But until then, had a marvelous season, helping the Orioles to a 100 victory season, and also the American League East crown, and of course, an appearance in the American League playoffs. Fortunately, it didn't go well for the Orioles as they were eliminated, but there is hope for the Orioles as they have a nice, young, vibrant team. And it took a few years for them to get back on track, but hopefully the Orioles are going to be a player over the next few seasons in baseball, probably until they lose all of their players to free agency or whatever. And of course, there was before I get to the baseball, the Cy Young, and of course, I'm just going to present you the facts, and then you, the viewer, can decide who do you think was, and I can't even say most valuable, but was probably the best model or best reflection of what the Cy Young Award winner should be. I mean, there have been years where it's just hands down. There was no case, no argument for anybody. I think of, and I'm going back 50 years, 1972 with Steve Carlton, or maybe even 69 with Tom Seaver, and of course 1968 with Dennis McLain, and of course Bob Gibson. But I mean, Ron Guidry in 78. So there have been many cases where there was just an outward Cy Young Award winner. But there have been other years where you say, okay, there could be some debate here, and maybe my player or my pitcher that I would have voted for should have gotten it. And I think this year, both the National and the American League, I think there is quite possibly those kind of arguments are going to come into play. Now, the first guy I want to do is Felix Bautista. Man, I never realized how big this guy was. Man, he must be one scary dude facing him on the mound when he's on all cylinders. He's about 6'8". They list him, according to Baseball Reference, about 245. I saw him during the season, and I know that television adds about 10 pounds. For me, it probably adds about 50. But he looked bigger than 245. I mean, I can imagine him as being, well, actually, they list him in Baseball Reference at about 285. Pardon me. I have to take that back. I actually think he might even hit the scales at about 300. He is just that big. And if you just see him, he's not a flailing body. It is just to me, it's a nice motion. For a guy that big, it's got a pretty compact motion, but very scary. You know, unlike Randy Johnson, who was 6'10", and it just seemed like he was a stork out there throwing the baseball. Not as, how do I say it? Not as put it this way, the most compact pitcher I ever saw deliver a baseball, and I still, and maybe I'm just completely ignorant of the whole pitching processes, the whole pitching protocol and mechanics, but I don't think anyone who emulates Tom Seaver is going to do, their body any damage or hurt the speed on which they're throwing a baseball. I just think he just embodied how a pitcher should throw a baseball. And of course, anybody who was a Met fan or anybody who followed baseball in the 60s and the 70s when Seaver was on top of the game recognized when his one knee was dirty, he was probably having a really good game. And when it wasn't really scraping the mound, he was probably having one of those games where he either had to adjust or really had to gut it out. But that was always a recognition that Seaver was probably on fire. Now, conversely, if you take a look at Bob Gibson, when he was throwing, and even Randy Johnson, like I said, seemed like the body was going all over the place. And in fact, Gibson never wound up in a defensive posture after throwing the baseball. And despite that, was still a great fielder on the mound. He was just a great athlete. To me, it was just a more unorthodox style of throwing the pitching motion than that of Seaver. That being said, let's get into the pitchers, because I probably don't know as much about pitching mechanics as I should. It's just from a fan's perspective. But and whatever, and unfortunately, Batista does have surgery coming up, and I'm just hoping all the best, because I think he's just one of those kind of guys that just when he comes out there, there's a charisma, a presence when he comes out on the mound. And of course, it did hurt the Orioles going into the playoffs. In fact, I broke down Batista this way. First of all, he had a great season. And of course, this year, he was 8-2, 1.48 ERA. He only had a 3 WAR. And of course, that's the top of the show with the analytics. Still don't understand that. Wins above replacement, because I'm saying to myself, well, the Orioles played .625 baseball with him on the mound. And he had 8 wins, 2 losses. He had 33 saves and only 6 blown saves in his. And actually, he missed pretty much the last month of the season. The Orioles were 21-13 in September, or in the time that he was not in the game. Actually, they were 80-48 while he was healthy, and just 21-13. They played .619 ball as opposed to .625 ball. All right, argument can be made that maybe the Orioles didn't lose that much, but he was a presence, and here's what I mean. Only 11 times all year did Batista come out onto the mound with a 3-run cushion. And in those games, he does blow one game and actually winds up losing. It was his worst appearance on the mound all year. He only lasted 2/3 of an inning and gave up 4 earned runs to the Astros. Other than that, though, he was on fire with 10 saves when he went out to the mound with a cushion of 3 runs or more. And that is really how they've defined a save. If you come out either the beginning or you face the 3 batters that you face represent, if they hit home runs, they could tie the game, then you are eligible for a save possibility. Came out, and with the exception of that Astro game, which of course the Orioles lost, his ERA, he only surrendered those 4 runs for a 3.2 ERA. You take that away, and it was a 0 ERA, plus you got 10 saves out of him. So he's quite effective. Here's the deal, though. With Batista, when he threw with a 2-run cushion, and I think that is lost, and I will tell you this, the Orioles were quite effective not using him back-to-back, much like the Yankees when they used Mariano Rivera. They didn't always they gave him a cushion in some of his saves and then would rest him and then bring him when he was really needed in 1-run affairs. But anyway, with a 2-run cushion, so you can still surrender a run and get the save. And that's why in a lot of respects, you can say, and I love the earned run average, but you can actually throw away the earned run average for relief pitchers, especially the ones who are seen as your stopper, who come in for 1 inning. And that is that they can come in for the 2 innings, give up 1 run, or have a 2-run lead, give up 1 run, get the save, but their ERA is 9. It would take them almost about 4 appearances giving up no runs for their ERA to come down to a more, let's say, realistic, let's say 2.25 ERA. So a high ERA generally is not, to me, a big deal for a relief pitcher if he is seen as your stopper, because every once in a while they're going to blow an inning where they give up 2-3 runs, but if they're only pitching 1 inning, that ERA is 27. All right? Now, with Batista on the mound, he threw 20.1 innings, only with a 2-run cushion, only gave up 2 earned runs, and got 15 saves, and was 1-1 as a record. Didn't blow any saves. Now, listen, this is a fast rendition and all the rest of it, but he had a 1.79 ERA in those 20 innings. Not bad. In fact, really good. And then here's the real, I think, and this is when you really have a fireman on the mound, and that is a 1-run lead where you can't give up the lead, obviously, or you can't even allow a tie because maybe, you're the away team. And, of course, now you go to extra innings, and, of course, it could be a walk-off situation. I hate that term, and I just used it. But anyway, with a 1-run lead, he threw 23 innings. So he threw the most innings of the 3. He only surrendered 2 earned runs all year. And he did have, he came into the game with, where he did allow, they put the runner at second. So he is not the run scored. So he's not, he's not charged with the run. It's kind of like an invisible run. But nonetheless, his ERA, 23 innings, a sterling 0.74. Now, this is where he only had 8 saves only. He had 6 wins and no losses. Now, he does have 4 blown saves in this situation. But of those 4 blown saves, he had 1 hold, and that was actually the last game before he got hurt, or did get hurt. But he had 4 blown saves, 8 saves, and 6 wins. It's not really bad. So an overall record, the Orioles were 9-4 in those games where he had a 1-run lead. It's a pretty good. It's just under 700. It's about a 700 winning percentage, which is higher than their regular season. I really don't think it's a bad record. All right. So overall, he's 8-2. The Orioles in those games are actually 15-4. So even with the couple of blown saves that he had, the Orioles were able to muster and scrape across a couple of runs to win the game. They were only 15-4 in the games where he had to come in or onto the mound with holding a 1-run lead. And of those, actually, ready for this? He actually He actually did not surrender a run after, I believe, that he earned a save against Texas, and then for the rest of the year with a 1-run lead. And I think that was I'm going to say that was July. I think it might have been July 6th. He surrenders, he gets the save, his second save with a 1-run lead, and gives up no runs the rest of the year. In fact, earned 6 saves, and from that point on, earned 5 wins after that to really help the Orioles. And remember, the Orioles had to overcome a huge lead by Tampa Bay. So his efforts in those 1-run leads really vaulted the Orioles to first place. Okay? That is Batista. So you're talking about a guy who had 33 saves, 8 wins, and 10 decisions, and was quite effective, not just holding a 3-run lead or a 2-run lead, but most effectively with a 1-run lead. Very effective. Now, I want to mention, I think I'll save Gerrit Cole for last. I'm going to go to ex-Met Chris Bassett. And I tell you, it's very interesting. I was just looking at Bassett's record. Ready for this? Bassett over the last 3 years. And I'm really starting to wonder. Batista, by the way, was 8-2. Still, he had a 3 WAR this year. Don't understand that. He's 12-6 lifetime with a 1.85 ERA. And in the 56 games this year, he had 33 saves, not bad, and 8 wins. Getting the Bassett, I'm looking at his record over the last 3 years. He makes the All-Star team with the Oakland A's 12-4, goes to the Mets, wins 15 games, and then this year with Toronto won 16. In the last 3 years, then you're talking about a guy who's won 43 games and only lost 21. Almost a 667 winning percentage. Ready for this? So that's 12, 15, and 16. I compare that over the last 3 years to Gerrit Cole. Ready for this? Cole won 16 games for the Yankees in 21, 13 for them in 22, and this year was 15-4. He has won 29, 44, and 20. Basically, you're talking about the same one-loss record for 2 different pitchers, and the Mets let him go. I can understand Oakland let him go, but you got to give kudos to the Blue Jays for maybe recognizing that maybe what they have here is maybe another Gerrit Cole. And that ain't bad. Cole over his career is 145 and 75. He's 70 games over 500 with a 659 winning percentage and a 317 ERA. Consider this. Cole with Pittsburgh, all right, from 2013 to 2016, he had an under 500 record his last year with Pittsburgh. Ready? He won 59 games and only lost 42. He had a 584 winning percentage. With Houston, he was 35-10. And with the Yankees right now, he's 689. And when you consider that the Yankees this year were 82-80, and he was basically almost 200 and some odd points over the Yankees win-loss. He's definitely a stud, and I'll tell you what, if he lasts another 4 or 5 years and continues, let's say, winning 15, you're talking about if he wins another 55 games, he's 200 and let's say 200 and let's say 90. Even if he's 200 and 100, he's 100 games over 500. This guy is definitely Hall of Fame material. There's not too many pitchers in the Hall of Fame with 300 decisions with a 667 winning percentage. I mean, one thing I love about this show and why I so appreciate Howard letting me do it and produce one every week is the fact that, wow, it opens my eyes sometimes when I'm doing the research. And sometimes I was just blind to really how good a pitcher Gerrit Cole is. And, he's probably one of these guys, obviously, that stays below the radar. Well, here's what I'm going to do. Since I want to save him for last, I might as well do him right now. Ready for this? And this is how I broke down Cole. Cole, in his first 6 decisions, was 5-0 with 1 no decision. The Yankees were 16-15. Take him away, and the Yankees are 10-15. Now, I'm not saying that the Yankees would have been, well, I will tell you this. Obviously, if you don't have Cole on the mound, maybe the Yankees are in deeper trouble than they want to recognize or would have realized, all right? You take Cole out of the whole formula, the Yankees are 15-4. The Yankees are 67-76 without him. And over the first 6 games, by the way, he only had 1 bad outing, I would consider, all year. He gave up he pitched only 4 innings and gave up 6 runs to the Red Sox, the arch rival. Ready this? Let me just get into that because there's just so much I want to talk about with Cole. It's great. But pitched 40 innings, only surrendered 5 runs. His record was 5-0 with 1 no decision. And the Yankees, of course, over that stretch of time, it's about a month, 5 weeks. All right, Yankees are 16-15. Then he hits a spell where he can't. He has 5 no decisions, but it's not his fault. Pitches actually very well, with that one exception. Goes 33 innings, allows 19 earned runs. The Yankees go 16-8, probably their best run the whole time. He does go 1-0, but he has 5 no decisions. But still, there wasn't one moment where he went. I believe in those 5 no decisions, he went 6 or more innings. So he was really a workhorse for the Yankees in this day and age of metrics where, well, when we were growing up, it used to be 6 innings was nothing for a starter. You expected maybe a starter to go 7. All right. And listen, that one extra inning, those extra 3 outs are monstrous today. Because now you don't have to fill the void with, let's say, and let's be honest, the middle innings relief pitchers, they're really a dime a dozen. They're replaced every year. It's like finding a pinch hitter becomes hot again. There's very few pinch hitters that make a career out of being clutch pinch hitters. I just think of people like Manny Mota, Gates Brown, Rusty Staub. All right. But usually a pinch hitter maybe catches fire every once in a while, just like a middle reliever or even some relief pitchers. Very rarely do they have back-to-back seasons where they're effective. So when you find one, you got to keep them. But anyway, he's 1-0, 5 no decisions. The Yankees go 16-8. So he's doing enough for the Yankees where they were winning games. Then his next 5 decisions, he goes 2-1, had 2 no decisions. Now this is where the Yankees kind of hit bottom. They go 8-10. He pitched 30 innings, gave up only 8 runs. Pretty good ERA. Okay. His next 6 outings, he goes 1-1. He has 3 no decisions. The Yankees lose 2 of those no decisions. 1 in extra innings. And I think that was to the Blue Jays. The other was a 1-0 game to the Orioles. And of course, who saved the game was Bautista. He actually threw 32 and 2/3 innings, only gave up 8 runs. So you're talking about a guy who in the first 23 outings, all right, 23 outings, and if you break them down into the units, like I said, there's only 1 real bad outing that he has, or 1 real bad stretch where he gives up double digits in earned runs. And then the final one, this is where he gave up 6 runs in 4 innings to the Red Sox. But he still goes 3-2 with 1 no decision. Throws the most innings of any stretch of those. Goes 37.2. The Yankees, of course, and this is probably one of the things that you can attribute this to. He's 3-2. He's still over 500 in that stretch of 6 games. Does get pounded by the Red Sox, but it is really more of a case where the Yankees the bottom just fell out. They go 9-16 over those stretch of his, even though he's 3-2. 3-2. The Yankees go 9-16. So there was a stretch there. Ready for this? So April, May, from June, July, and August, over those stretch, the Yankees actually went 16, 25, and 35. And over that course, he was 6-4 with 6 no decisions. And then the final stretch, this is September, he's 3-0, has 2 no decisions, probably threw his best all year. 35 innings, 4 earned runs. Unfortunately, and the Yankees finish up 13-11 during those 5 stretches. He finished, ready for this, 10-0 against Toronto, Tampa Bay, Texas, LA, that's the Dodgers, Minnesota Twins, and the Philadelphia Phillies. He's 10-0. In his no decisions, the Yankees beat Milwaukee, they split with Tampa Bay, they beat Baltimore, and they lose to Toronto. So they're 3-2. And his 3 losses, 3 of his losses come against Miami, Baltimore, and Boston. And the reason I put Boston in there, all those teams that obviously I involved in those decisions, they were all playoff bound. The only reason I put the Boston one in there is because that's their big rival. So he's 0-2. And actually, he does lose. He's 0-3 against those teams. But he's overall, ready for this, he's 13, or the Yankees are 13-4 in games that he pitches against playoff teams. So he finished 15-4, 2.63 ERA, which is really outstanding when you think about it. And like I said, he's 10-0 in decisions against playoff-bound teams. Toronto, Tampa Bay, 3 of them, 5 wins. 5 wins against East Division rivals, Texas and LA, Minnesota and Philly. Really had a great year. And of course, I'm now starting to prejudice. Batista had a great year. Cole had a great year. And Bassett is an interesting guy. He's 16-5. I broke this down a little bit differently than I did with Cole's. And I still broke it down into the units of 6-5, 6-6, 5-5, basically by months, as I found it on ESPN. His first month, he was 3-2 with 1 no decision. In the first 3 months, he kind of gets pounded, where he surrendered 9 runs, earned runs in 3 innings to St. Louis, 7 runs in 4 innings against Minnesota, and 8 runs in 3 innings against Baltimore. After that, and he's so consistent. Ready for this? In his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in the 6 months that ESPN has broken this down, it's really interesting. 33, 33, 33, 33, 32, and 34. Very consistent. And here's the deal. He beats New York, Tampa Bay, Arizona, Houston twice, and Atlanta. He's 6-0 against playoff teams. In his 1 no decision, it was against Texas. And he is, he's actually 6-4 against playoff teams because he loses twice to Baltimore, loses to Minnesota, and loses to Tampa Bay. But he's actually 6-4-1 against playoff-bound teams. And the one loss, or the one is a no decision. Now, ready for this, he finishes 16-8 with a 3.60 ERA. Kind of like the Atlanta ace. And but I broke it down. I actually removed his 3 best and his 3 worst starts. So the 3 worst were the 9 runs against St. Louis, the 7 against Minnesota, and the 8 against Baltimore. His 3 best outings, he surrendered no runs at all against Washington, where he pitched 8 innings, San Francisco 6, and the Mets 7.2. I eliminated those, and I eliminated the records in those. He actually finishes, if you eliminated all of that, I'm going to do it this way. He actually finished 13-8 with a 4.02 earned run average in his worst starts, if you only had those. With his best starts, he would have finished 16-5, 2.61. That is a huge range. Those 3 losses, or those 3 bad outings, really, really inflated his ERA, almost a full run, 0.99. He had a very good season, pitched exactly 200 innings, was 16-8 with a 3.6 ERA for a Blue Jay team which made the playoffs again. And the Mets let him go. Can you imagine had they kept him along with Verlander and Scherzer? Maybe the Mets season would have been a little bit different than it finished this year. This is Will O'Toole thanking you all for tuning in and listening. And this is probably the 3 AL Cy Young potential winners for the American League. Thanks, and see you next week with another edition of Park Ridge Sports History and another special shout out to Howard Frederick and all our fans. Bye now.